NASCAR Cup Series drivers, 4 retired police cars worth $2,000 each, one of the fastest tracks on the planet. What happened next broke every expectation and honestly broke the internet too. This is not a story about a race team with $1 million budget. This is not a story about cutting-edge aerodynamics or wind tunnel data. This is a story about a YouTuber, a fleet of jers, and a number on a GPS readout that nobody, and we mean nobody, saw coming. Let's start with who made this happen. Cleetus McFarland, real name Garrett Mitchell, is a YouTuber, grassroots racer, and the owner of the Freedom Factory, a repurposed short track in Bradenton, Florida. He has built an entire racing universe around cheap, beat-up, high-horsepower American cars, and the fans have followed him every step of the way. For this particular stunt, Mitchell didn't rent out Talladega Superspeedway and show up with racing machines. He showed up with Ford Crown Victorias, the same body-on-frame, Vate-powered tanks that police departments have been auctioning off for years. We are talking about $2,000 cars. Some of them still had license plates on them when they pulled through the gates. And the guests he invited? Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Ryan Preece, 3 full-time NASCAR Cup Series drivers from RFK Racing. Men who get paid to drive the most technologically advanced stock cars on the planet. That day, they were climbing into $2,000 auction lot Crown Vics. The terms of the track rental were straightforward. They had 7 hours on the property. The plan included top speed runs, pit stop races, tandem drafting, and a segment they called spectator drags. There was also one very firm rule written into the contract. If they destroyed the manicured grass at Talladega, there was a $200,000 fine. No pressure at all. This was not the first time Mitchell had taken Crown Vics to a super speedway. Earlier in the year, the crew ran them at Daytona International Speedway. A single Crown Vic, running on its own, topped out at approximately 127 miles per hour. That is already a number that has no business coming out of a retired police interceptor. But when they got 4 cars into a draft pack at Daytona, pushing and pulling each other around the track, the speed climbed to 148 miles per hour. That is what draft physics does on a superspeedway. And it works whether you are in a cup car or a car that was ticketing speeders on the highway 3 years ago. For the Talladega run, the crew made specific changes to chase even higher numbers. They installed shorter tires on the cars. The reasoning was straightforward. At Daytona, the engines were bogging down because the RPMs were not high enough. Shorter tires allow the engine to spin faster, which pushes the car harder. On top of that, since this was NASCAR's own facility, NASCAR required them to run Goodyear tires, specifically Goodyear Eagle F1s, which happened to be slightly shorter than what they used at Daytona. A little extra RPM was the result. And then there was the secret weapon, nitrous oxide. The plan was to save it for the big run, hold it for as long as possible, and see what the GPS showed. Brad Keselowski explained the physics of tandem drafting using the analogy of a Newton's cradle. Those desk toys with the swinging metal balls. When the car at the back of a draft pack makes contact with the one in front, the energy transfers all the way up the line. The lead driver feels every single push from behind. And when you stack 4 cars into a tight line, the car at the rear is running at quarter throttle just to maintain pace. That is how powerful the effect becomes on 33-degree banking at a track like Talladega. Even before the nitrous runs, it was clear this day was going to produce something remarkable. The crew hit the track for early laps before the NASCAR drivers arrived, and they were already running approximately 10 miles per hour faster than Daytona on the very first run. The GPS was showing 154 miles per hour before they had even started pushing hard. Then, the complications started. One of the cars began leaking oil mid-run. The engine was smoking, and the oil was spraying directly onto the windshield of the car, immediately behind it. That is not a comfortable situation. At 150 plus miles per hour, the session continued regardless. When the RFK drivers arrived and started getting familiar with the cars, Brad Keselowski made it known immediately that he wanted to lower the ride height on his Crown Vic, explaining that he had been prone to flipping in his career and would prefer not to add a Crown Vic rollover at Talladega to that list. The first group top speed run, with no nitrous, put all 4 cars into a draft and sent them after a number. The result was 148 miles per hour. They had already matched the peak speed from the Daytona draft pack, and no one had touched the nitrous bottle yet. Then came the pit stop races, where things got competitive in a hurry. The rules were simple. Every driver had to make one full pit stop. First car back to the finish line wins. The wager attached was specific. The losers had to call the winner Big Daddy 3 times on demand. Brad Keselowski and Ryan Preece found the gray area. They started the race from pit road, completing their required stop before the green flag even dropped. Everyone else was out on track assuming a normal start. By the time Mitchell figured out what was happening, the race was already over. Preece won easily. Mitchell was furious, coming into pit road sideways at 130 miles per hour, his Crown Vic sliding like a log on water. He called it a technicality. Keselowski simply pointed out that nobody told them they could not do it. Technically, he was right. They ran it back with a new rule. Everyone pits on the first lap. Same lap, no loopholes. The rerun was significantly cleaner. The tandem racing that followed was described by multiple people as a direct echo of the old tandem drafting era in NASCAR, when pairs of cars would lock together and push each other for entire laps. Chris Buescher won the second race by approximately 6 inches. That is as close as it gets. Then came the moment the entire day had been building toward. Mitchell believed his car was the fastest, so he took the lead position. Keselowski went second because his car had the strongest push. The other 2 lined up directly behind. The plan was simple. Get locked into the draft, hit the nitrous at the same time, and hold the button down as long as possible. All 4 cars accelerated down the backstretch of Talladega Superspeedway, locked bumper to bumper, all 4 nitrous systems firing simultaneously. Mitchell was holding the nitrous button with one hand, watching his mirror, and staring at the speed readout all at once. They drove into turn 3 still completely wide open. Every gauge was in the red. The engines were screaming. The GPS showed 159 miles per hour, so close to 160 miles per hour it was painful. They held the nitrous for 30 straight seconds on those runs. By the end of the day, the bottles were completely empty. The cars smelled hot, but every single one of them survived. Mitchell's assessment was direct. I think we are the 4 fastest men on the planet in stock Crown Vics, and based on all available evidence, he is probably right. There is no documented case of a bone stock Crown Victoria reaching that speed before this day. Keselowski had a specific frame of reference for what it felt like. He said it reminded him directly of the tandem racing era in NASCAR. Specifically, he connected it to a race at Talladega in 2008. He had watched another driver push Jeff Gordon to a win using a tandem draft. Keselowski came back the following race and used the same move to win himself. So when he was sitting in a Crown Vic pushing Mitchell to 159 miles per hour at the same track, he said it felt exactly identical. Every gauge red, the engine on the edge of failure, and nothing to do but hold the steering wheel straight and hope. RFK crew, all Ford people, could not believe what the Crown Vics had endured. Mitchell asked the group directly, what other $2,000 car could have done this? The answer from everyone was the same. Nothing. Not even close. Before they left the track, Mitchell turned to Keselowski and asked him to put in a word with Ford about bringing the Crown Victoria back into production. Keselowski laughed and said he would see what he could do. This day at Talladega was not just a content shoot, it was a data point about where motorsport fans actually stand right now. Consider the Freedom Factory in Bradenton, Florida. The Freedom 500, Mitchell's signature event, 100 laps of nitrous-powered tire shredding racing in Crown Vics and similar machines, has been sold out for an extended period. While major NASCAR series work to fill grandstands at some of the most historic facilities in the country, a repurposed short track in Central Florida running so-called obsolete cars is one of the most in-demand tickets in American motorsport. The fans are not being subtle about what they want. They want personality. They want affordability. They want drivers who look like they are genuinely having the time of their lives behind the wheel. Chris Buescher, a full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver, was asked directly about the Crown Vic experience at Talladega. His answer, "We had a blast. Not going to lie, that was a little sketchy at times, but Cleetus and that entire crew were awesome and welcomed us down there." He also spoke candidly about the idea of an actual NASCAR Crown Vic series, drawing a clear line between a fun promotional experience and something that would be genuinely dangerous at race speed. "I would not want to put 30 Crown Vics on Talladega and try to actually race," Buescher said, adding that there was a moment mid-run where he briefly considered making a race-winning block before realizing the risks. "This is a street car with a cage welded in," he noted, "and it will not feel good." That distinction is important. Nobody is arguing that Crown Vics belong on the Cup Series grid. What this day demonstrated is something more significant, that the overlap between professional motorsport and creator-driven grassroots racing is real, it is growing, and the audience for it is enormous. Entire experience into a single sentence. Most American thing I've done, like a bald eagle. And the fact that 3 Cup Series drivers drove to Talladega on their own time to get into auction lot Crown Vics and push them to 159 miles per hour tells you everything about where their heads are at. The RFK Racing drivers also confirmed they have an open invitation to race at the Freedom 500. Whether that happens or not, the connection between professional NASCAR and the world Cleetus McFarland has built is no longer a curiosity. It is a legitimate overlap, and it is only going to get wider. A $2,000 Crown Vic, Talladega Superspeedway, 159 miles per hour. Hit that subscribe button, because if Cleetus does this again, you are not going to want to miss it. And drop a comment right now. Should NASCAR run an official Crown Vic series? Let's actually settle this.